Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us about practicing what you preach when it comes to being intentional about putting yourself first. Today is a bit different, actually. You already know my guest. Today, you're going to be hearing a little bit more about me, Suzy Rosenstein, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who has had an online coaching business in the midlife space now since 2015. I'm also a podcast host, as you can tell, since 2017, and I also know the importance of prioritizing self-care and getting clear about what you want. And in keeping with this, I'll also be making a special announcement during this episode. So now that we're 106 episodes in on the Women in the Middle Entrepreneur Show, I thought it would be fun for me to answer some of the questions that I typically ask my amazing guests and give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes sort of thing. I'm sure it's no surprise that at 61 years old and an entrepreneur, I have many of the challenges that you've been hearing about on the show. I think it's pretty much impossible not to, don't you think? So I already answered the first question that I always ask. I'm 61, and at the time of this recording, I'm on the brink of 62. I have no problem sharing my age, and it still feels weird that I'm in my 60s. Like sometimes I think it and I'm like, really? I feel like I'm in my late 30s. Now, I want my guests to share their age for 3 reasons. 1, it's interesting. 2, they may also share their thoughts and feelings about sharing their age. And 3, it makes it easier to relate to the story they're sharing. I also like to ask my guests what their entrepreneurial journey looked like that led them to where they are now. And I find these stories so fascinating, and I hope you do too. So my entrepreneurial journey started when I was 12. Of course, there was babysitting for $1 an hour. How much did you make when you were babysitting back in the 70s? But for me, the real shift was when I discovered calligraphy. I fell in love. And I was 12, like I said. Somebody I knew was writing something and he had a special pen. And I could not believe my eyes. I had never seen such a beautiful thing. And I asked him all kinds of questions, and then a week later, he sent me a beginner calligraphy pen set. And that started everything. I absolutely fell in love with ink, with writing, with lettering, with calligraphy, with papers, all of it. And that led to me doing invitations, like the addresses on invitations, and then even making a sign at a well-known restaurant in Philadelphia. Back then, it was called Bookbinders. It was a very famous restaurant. I have no memory of how I got that gig when I was a kid. I think it had to do with an adult. I don't know how it happened. But anyway, it was like a big handwritten calligraphy sign. I don't even remember what it says, and I have no pictures to prove it, but I do remember that. Then the next entrepreneurial thing that happened was a few years later, I discovered Fimo clay in my 20s, and I started to make jewelry. It was super fun to do this in university. I used to bake the stuff in a little toaster oven that I got secondhand at a garage sale. And I also typed papers for fellow students back then. That was in the early 80s. And I had a typewriter. This was before computers and before anybody had this stuff as a regular thing. We had to take typing in high school. You probably did too. And I was really fast. So that was a way that I made some money. Eventually, I ended up doing a master's in psychology where I focused on qualitative research, specifically about children and their pet dogs. And I got really good at long-form interviews, and I loved it so much. Then once I graduated, I took several jobs in public health and health education, nothing particularly entrepreneurial in a classic sense, but my jobs were typically project-based. And the skills there, doing project management and being on a team and leading a team, were absolutely entrepreneurial. My skills doing interviews, also, they were always called on, every single job I had. My last job was a long-term job, 19 years at one place, and it was in a health publishing department. Coming up with book ideas and publishing them was definitely a great skill to have. Somewhere along the line, a partner and I also developed a baby time capsule product in Canada. This was definitely a solid entrepreneurial experience. And it was just before online banking and being able to take credit cards online. It was just before that was easy and normal. So things were a bit challenging that way, selling this time capsule product, but it was fun. And I learned a ton. Then, decades into my career, I had an interesting experience one day in a needlepoint store. I like to call this my needlepoint epiphany. I walked into this store and the colors on the walls of all the threads and the designs, it was overwhelming. It was so beautiful. And I see in the back of the room, there were these women standing over like a tall table, like leaning over. And the teacher, the owner of the store, was teaching them something. I think it was how to put beads into the needlepoint. But everybody was so engaged and they were so interested. And I was just like, wow, I didn't even know this sort of thing existed. I was doing my first needlepoint project. It never occurred to me that there would be a needlepoint store. Anyway, I went back to work that day thinking, wow, that woman, that owner of the store figured out how to combine what she loved with making a living. And then I started asking myself, why aren't I an entrepreneur by now? Like this was somewhere between 45 and 50. And I realized in that moment with this experience that it was actually something I always assumed I would be doing. And here I was, midlife was like I said, I don't remember the exact year. I think it was a little bit closer to 50, but I wasn't. I worked at a job. I was in a union. I really liked my job for the longest time. And then gradually in those last few years during this time period, I started to really feel that I just wasn't content anymore. I'd probably been there too long. So I realized this interest in being an entrepreneur, but when I started to actually think about it, I also understood that I was really scared of doing something like that. So much fear, and it just felt too indulgent. Then, after 27 years in the healthcare sector, I received a layoff notice and was given the gift I couldn't give myself. If you were laid off too, you know how tough the experience can be. So it took a few months to lick my wounds and regroup. I worked at figuring out what I wanted to do. And the one thing I really realized, what really became clear to me, was that I missed working one-on-one with people in a meaningful way, like developing relationships like that, having the time as part of my job to do that sort of thing. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that, but at least I saw that I wanted it. I understood that, and I started to explore some options. I ended up meeting someone eventually who was a life coach, and she told me all about her experience and certification and all of that. So I decided to apply where she went, and that was a long time ago now. That was in 2014, and as soon as I got in there and I started to experience what was going on and learn some of these self-development concepts and immerse myself in a group of people who really loved the concept of lifelong learning and challenging themselves, it was a one-way ticket in that direction. I didn't know if I would actually be an entrepreneur, but I was going in that direction. But first, I had to become a good coach. So as I was learning how to coach, that's when I became exposed to more and more people who were able to do it. They did have online businesses, all kinds of online businesses, and entrepreneurs, even in bricks and mortar situations. But I just started to meet more people than I had met in 30 years. It was just really fun to hang out with other entrepreneurs. So I still had lots of questions, but it felt right. The general direction felt right. And what I always coach on in my community, the Women in the Middle Academy, is that we just have to take the next best step. There are no guarantees. All we know really is the next best step. So we have to learn to trust and just lean in to that direction. And that's what I did. This was the meaning I was looking for. I could just sense it. And at that time, I was 50. My first kid went to university, and things were changing at home and in menopause land too. Things start to change. And I became absolutely fascinated, not just with life coaching, not just with becoming an entrepreneur, but also with midlife women and the midlife experience. The more and more I got into coaching, I heard so much fear and confusion and negativity from midlife gals. Lots of the glass is half empty kind of perspective, and I saw the ease for women to focus on what they couldn't do instead of what they could do. This was a common thing in midlife. This all hit me really hard, but not in the way you might be thinking. My personal story is that I lost both of my birth parents when I was young. My mother passed at 32 when I was 5 years old. My father passed at 41 when I was 12. In addition to my own loss, I grew up watching four grandparents deal with tremendous grief of losing their adult children. My parents, they didn't have the privilege to age. They didn't have the gift of aging. So many people take that for granted. This awareness and experience had a huge effect on me over the years. The way you think about aging and opportunity is optional. You can see the glass half full or half empty. You can influence your thoughts on purpose so you have the life you want. You can learn to think on purpose in a very intentional way. Yet, so many midlife women don't quite see it that way, at least at first when they're becoming aware of their own thoughts about aging. It became obvious for me that this was what I wanted to do. I saw it so clearly. The bottom line is that when you age, you can fear your future or you can shape it. The question is, which will you choose? Understanding that you have a choice can be life-changing. And I'm committed to help midlife women get unstuck on all kinds of issues in midlife and truly see what's possible for them. Okay, now the next big question I ask my guests is about what midlife changes they face and how they get in the way of running their business. So what's going on for them in midlife that becomes a challenge for them to run their business the way they want to? What gets in the way? So I want to share a bit about the midlife challenges going on for me. Energy is a big one. Now, this has come up a lot on the show. If you're a regular listener, you've heard this time and time again. Women tend to say that their energy has changed in that they have less or their energy has shifted and they realize they need to change something about their scheduling, their day, their calendar to better capitalize on when they have the most energy. Does that resonate with you? I like to call this your midlife operating system. So we started out with an operating system before midlife. We became professional planners of our lives. When we were younger, we had a pretty good idea of how to structure our days, how to make plans, what the main plans and goals to focus on should be to get us through the next 30 years or so. So here are some of the examples of the types of things that you probably had in mind for goals. And these are in no particular order, and maybe they weren't all relevant for you, but things like getting your education, getting married or not, partnering up in some way, having kids or not. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you wanted to put your career first. Maybe you wanted to establish your career. Maybe you wanted to buy a home. Maybe you wanted to invest in real estate. Maybe you want to plan for your retirement. That kinds of things, like big things that we were working toward. We understood the typical flow for the day. We had energy for the day. And now in midlife, your good old operating system for life doesn't always fit so well anymore. That's why in midlife, it's very common for us to consider revamping our operating system and creating a midlife operating system that works for us now at our age. For me, my issues have shown up about energy too, but in a different way. I have tons of energy. It was never really a problem for me, even in menopause. People even called me the Energizer Bunny. I don't know. It just was never a problem. I was not a nap taker either. I didn't do that sort of thing. But unless I'm really dialed in, I don't get enough sleep. First, it was a sleep apnea problem that I fixed with CPAP after years, decades actually, of resistance. And I've done a whole episode about my experience with CPAP on my Women in the Middle show. If you want to learn more about that, I will put the link in the show notes. So after CPAP was under control, then I realized how much I actually loved staying up late at night and doing work. I actually cannot believe this about myself, but since I've become an entrepreneur, like for 10 years, I love it. I stay up so late at night and I'm so happy. I never once even pulled an all-nighter at university. It was never me. What I notice myself doing is that I ignore feeling tired late at night and I just power through and then I get a second wind. The result is way less sleep than I need. And in my 60s, I realize now how important sleep is to our overall health in so many ways. Like, it's scary how many ways. So I started to take it seriously. So this whole thing has been a really big deal for me. As an entrepreneur, as you know, work is fun. There are squirrels everywhere and lots of creative things to work on. Always an idea, always something fun to do. And it's quiet at night. Nobody, including my lovable Nico the Noof, nobody's awake to bug or distract me. That's how I think about it. It's an urge, honestly, that I continue to work on. Like, now I'm trying to get to the point that when I feel tired, I actually go to bed. So I'm getting better at it, and I'm tracking everything on my Aura ring, so I can see that it's getting a little bit better, but it's really surprised me, and it does continue to be an occasional challenge. Now, the other midlife issue that's come up in our house is the not so empty nest. My nest was actually only empty for 2 months. My 3 kids have come and gone now for about 10 years. It's fluid. It's a fluid situation, and it hasn't been a problem, but it does require more communication, more groceries, more planning. And there are also benefits. They're totally fun to be around, and they're sometimes even home during the day with their own hybrid work situations. Working from home myself, it's nice to have people around sometimes because otherwise I'm alone in the house. Me, my dog, and my bird. And Nico, our dog, oh, he really benefits from having the kids around. So it's not a problem, but it is something that just, like I said, needs more coordination and just a little bit more sensitivity around. And I would say that the biggest challenge continues to be to put my own needs first. Yes, even as a midlife mindset coach and even with lots of experience, I still catch myself with an occasional autopilot thought that doesn't reflect my needs or my priorities. I'm getting way better at it, though, and of course, I am compassionate with myself when it happens. So when I see it, I call these shenanigans. When I see that kind of a thought thing happening, I'm on to myself. So it's not that it doesn't happen, it does happen, but I'm able to catch it sooner and keep moving forward the way I want to on purpose. Okay, there's another question I love asking my guests, and that is what they are focusing on now. So I'll ask that of myself. Personally, I'm focusing on bringing more creativity into my life as a certified Zentangle teacher and with my personal practice of mindful doodling and just creativity and art and projects and learning new skills, all that kind of stuff. I want to welcome that into my life. I've incorporated mindful doodling into my business as well, and it's such a great fit. It's so great for coaching, and it is such an incredible way to really teach and coach on the concept of present moment functioning and being present. I'm also working on being more intentional about my health and have seen a few specialists to help me with some issues that have popped up, like lactose intolerant and a sore back, often instigated by a long drive. So I really don't want a long drive to become a problem. I love road trips, but I'm testing out many cushions and things to sit on and backrests and all kinds of things to make things better. Now, professionally, I'm excited about continuing to grow my signature program for Midlife Gals Over 50, the Women in the Middle Academy. Midlife transformation coaching really is the fastest way to rediscover joy and purpose at this age, if you show up for yourself, of course. It makes it possible, and it's just such a great way to move forward. The Academy makes it faster, more creative, and more fun. Plus, the community of Midlife Gals, oh my gosh, amazing. Amazing. To do this kind of growth together is a very powerful experience. I'm also doing regular webinars and workshops now, so there's always an easy way for midlife gals who know that they're meant for more but can't figure it out, for them to connect with me and get some help. Nobody wants to waste time at this age. We are very focused about time, wasting time, running out of time. So I want to be very available in a way that works well for me and my business, that I can still stay in touch with people who need help easily, very easily. And I'm also working on telling more and more women about my masterclass, Get Unstuck, Midlife Clarity Fast and Easy. It's an inexpensive, fun way to get clear about your next chapter priorities without spin, confusion, and overwhelm in less than an hour. And if that's something you're interested in, head over to www.midliferoadmap.com. There you have it, my friend, a bit more about what's going on for me as a midlife 50-plus gal, a woman entrepreneur just like you. Now, I mentioned earlier that I had an announcement to share today as well. As of today's episode, 106 Women in the Middle Entrepreneur episodes are now published and out in the world. I launched this second podcast, the sister podcast to my original show, Women in the Middle, Loving Life After 50. I launched it back in spring 2024. I started out by publishing 2 episodes a week, and a few months ago, I dropped it down to 1 episode per week. And now I've decided to do something I've never done before. It may not seem like a big deal to you, but it sure was for me. Here's the announcement. Drum roll, please. Where's my drummer kid when I need him? The Women in the Middle Entrepreneur Show will be going on summer hiatus and will return in September 2025. There, I did it. I put myself first. I managed my mind to allow this idea to come through. When it came to me, I had a little resistance to it. I'm like, no, I can't do that. And then I'm like, wait, it's my podcast. I can do what I want. And the truth is, I was tired. Coming up with all these episodes, it's a lot. And I really wanted to take a break, a podcast break. And I just thought, you're busy with the summer. There's 106 episodes out there for you to enjoy. So I allowed the idea to come through and I accepted it. And now I'm sharing it with you. Honestly, I feel amazing about it. And I also feel amazing that 106 episodes are out there for you to enjoy. And that's not all. At the time of this recording, there are 410 episodes waiting for you on the original Women in the Middle show as well. Remember, all of this podcast goodness is free entertainment and coaching amazingness for you. There's really solid information, lots of interesting guests, lots of solo episodes from me being your coach, talking about self-development and being intentional, and really how you can move towards happiness and create your life that's more in alignment with your priorities. All of it's there in the podcast and more, both podcasts. I love to call podcasts a party in your purse. Now think about it, a party in your purse, because they are so much fun and they are so useful. They are only one click away on your phone. And if you go to www.partyinyourpurse.com, you'll find a free podcast bundle for my original podcast to get you started on that show with some of the most popular episodes. So you can check that out as well, partyinyourpurse.com. So that's what I have for you today. As a woman in the middle entrepreneur like you, I'm happy to share that I'm practicing what I preach and I'm taking a short podcast break. My question to you is, how are you going to practice what you preach? How are you planning to put yourself first? What does your own self-care even look like when you're busy and you're up to your ears in midlife challenges? Are they getting in the way? Are you letting them get in the way? Are you able to take care of yourself as an entrepreneur? Think about it, my friend. It's important. You're important, and I'm here for you. All right, that is it for now. If you are listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick, before we say goodbye, if you're connecting with this show because midlife challenges are also making it harder for you to run your business and your life the way you want to, I am thrilled we've connected here. If you're just not as happy and fulfilled as you'd hoped you'd be, I want to invite you to apply for the Women in the Middle Academy. It's my 12-month midlife coaching program and community where you'll have fun creating your path to getting unstuck, gaining clarity, and stepping into the life you've always wanted. If you're ready to stop waiting and start living, then the Women in the Middle Academy is where you are meant to be. Head over to www.womeninthemiddleacademy.com. Talk soon.